Okay, so I've got the ball moving. We already saw that happen. That looked pretty good. I want to make it so I can move this paddle so we can make it collide with it. So let's do that next. So for that one, it's not going to be animation because I'm not trying to make it move over time. Event handlers work. These are just generic ones. They don't do anything other than just execute when you click. So what we're going to do is go to actions, and you'll see this one for click to position an object. Select the paddle, double click, click to position an object. Boom. Okay, we're going to get rid of this extra bit here. All right, so now we've got this dot paddle, click to position the bind, and then this here. I don't like the generic name, so I'm just going to go ahead and we're just going to call this, let's call it paddle control, right? And then we'll just call this also paddle control. Paddle control. All right. Now what's going to happen is when you click on it, it's just going to move to a certain spot. So I'm just going to hit Control Enter so you can see this work. So when I click on it, it's just going to move up there. It was like 100 by 200. Which that doesn't look like it's 100. It's like 100 by 100. But anyway, that's what it does. It's just going to move it over. So that's not super handy. Okay. So what we're going to do is I want to change what that code is to something a little bit different. So this isn't built into it. We're just going to have to type this out. So what I want to do is we're not going to use the click event. Because you might have noticed that I'm not clicking on it when I was doing it in the example. I click and I drag it. So we want to pull this. So it's not going to be click. It's going to be press, move. So that is the event that it's listening for. All right. And then what we want to do is once you do press and move the mouse, we want to do this. It's going to be this dot paddle, because that's the name of it, dot x. So its x position is going to be equal to stage dot mouse x. So basically, the paddle is going to move in the same position as my mouse x. Okay. Now, I'm going to copy this, but we're going to remove this other part. I didn't remove it in the example. We'll copy this, and we're going to make it y and y. And then you should see that when I bring this over, come on, cool. When I bring this over, oh, it's still clicking. Hang on a second. Let me see. This dot paddle dot y. This is paddle, right? Come on, move. There we go. Paddle. And we have that. Okay. This dot paddle, paddle control, paddle control, paddle control. This dot paddle dot x. Dot paddle dot x. Stage dot mouse x. Mouse. Oh, it's a capital X. My bad. Sorry. Mouse X and mouse Y. Whoopsies. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. So now if I click and drag, you can see it's moving left and right. I thought I did Y. Mouse paddle dot Y. Oh, this should be lowercase. Let's try that again. Okay. So now you can see we can click and drag this and move this wherever. Okay. Now that being said, I inadvertently showed you what I wanted it to do, which is I want it to, I don't want this part. I don't want to be able to move it up and down. We're just going to move left and right. So we're just going to take this. I'm just going to comment this bit out. But if you do want to leave it in so you can move up and down, we might add it in afterwards just because. But now you'll see when I go to do this, I can move it, but see, it doesn't move up and down, which is a little bit more like it should be. Okay. And I might need to reposition this a little bit, but we'll put it, let's move it down just a little bit. Okay. So we'll put it there. And that looks good. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I need to add the collision aspect. Okay. So collision's a little bit hard, but we'll do the best we can. So this is going to entirely have to be written by hand. So it's a little bit weird when you do it in JavaScript, but anyway, so we're going to do it again like we would do in other programs. So we're going to make a new function called ball. Actually, let's do it down here first. We're going to new function down here, and we'll call it ball I got to write function first. Function ball collision. Okay, like so, like that. Okay, don't need that slash. Okay, so we're going to make a new function called ball collision. I'm going to grab this little bit, Control C, and we're going to put it in here, and we're going to hit Control V. Okay, so oops, with a semicolon. So the idea here is that on update, it's going to run ball move, which is going to constantly move the ball every frame. Okay, and it's also going to run this ball collision because I need to test whether we're colliding against something on every update, on every tick, because at any moment we could be hitting this. Okay, so that's why we're putting that there. All right, so this bit of code is going to be like this. So we're going to basically have to test whether we are colliding it using a built-in method called local to local. So we're going to make this, just type this out, variable point. It's going to be export root dot ball dot local to local, and then we'll do 55, which is 50, and then what we're testing against. And remember, this is going to be on the actual ball. But right here we have ball, and then right here is going to be the thing we're hitting against. So export root dot paddle. Okay. And what we'll do is put a semicolon after that. We're going to do if. We're going to test whether we hit, right? So this is going to run it, but then this is going to be testing whether we actually hit it. So export root dot paddle dot hit test, and it's going to be ptx and pt dot y, like that. And then we're going to do this. Now, just to make sure, let me do this too. Enter. Let me make backspace. There we go. Let me scroll in a little bit, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to read. Let me expand this a little bit. Wish it was highlighted better. Okay, so export root paddle dot hit test pt.xpt.y. And now what I want to do is just want to test that it's working. So just do alert, and we'll just say hit, put an exclamation point because we're excited, and then a semicolon. So we're just gonna make sure that's working, and then if it is working, then we'll know that we're good. Okay, so just do that. Hit Control Enter, and I'm going to show you mine. It did work, but I'm going to hit refresh, and you should see it go boom. And as soon as it hits it, it's going to say hit. All right. So the best way to kind of debug things, at least a good way of doing it that I like to use, is I just write alert on things and then write what the, if it's a value I'm trying to find out or something. So if you're used to like debug.log or something in Unity or other programs, that's kind of what you would do. Okay. So it says hit. It says okay. Good. All right. So we do know that it is indeed hitting. Now what we want to do is actually have it do something when it hits. So this is actually going to be pretty simple. What we want to do is remove this alert. It was only there for help purposes. We're going to take the ball speed y, and we're going to make it equal to -50. So that might seem counterintuitive, but 0, 0 inside of Animate here is this point, and then max x is over here. So this is not this would be 1280, and this is 0, and then this is 0, and this is 960. So if we do -50, that actually means we're moving it up. So gravity, if you look, it's all the positive numbers because we're moving it down. So what I'm going to do is take whatever the ball speed y is, I'm completely overriding it and saying make it 50 instead, which is going to basically make it shoot up. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I want to reset my gravity to 0, right? Because it should start back at the back where it started, right? Back at 0. So we're going to say make it 50. And then what's going to happen is on ball move, you'll see that gravity is going to keep increasing, which is going to basically subtract from that 50 and make it faster and make it slower and slower until eventually it starts making it go down the other direction. All right. So hopefully that all makes sense. Hit Control Enter, and then you should see the ball hit the paddle. Okay, so let's hit refresh, and you should be able to move it down the line. Good. Okay, so that looks pretty acceptable, I would say. What are we at time-wise? Okay, one other thing I want to do, just on the off chance, because sometimes this was an issue I was running into as well, is we are going to max out the ball speed, because what will end up happening is that the ball will get really fast. Right now, it's not a problem, but I've had problems where, like, if the ball moves so fast, so let's say it moves, if it's gravity, right, it's going to move only this much on the first frame, right? Then on the next frame, it's going to move that much. The next frame, it's that much. Then the next frame is that much. Then if the next frame is down here, it never overlapped, so it never collided. So if the ball's gaps between its movements are too far, it won't overlap this, and it won't count as a collision, right? Because you gotta remember, this is doing it based off of frames, because that's how Animate works. So here it didn't contact, and here it didn't contact. So if it goes from here to here in between two frames, doesn't count as long as it's touching on one of these. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that that max speed is equivalent, more or less, to our this number here, this 50/50, because that makes sure that it should always be within that range. Okay, so we're gonna go up here, and after this, we're gonna do gravity max speed. So gravity max speed, and we'll set that equal to, let's say, 5, because we don't want it to move too much. So it's only ever going to be able to go up to 5 falling down. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit to the gravity part here in order to make that run better. So what we're going to say is we do the gravity multiplier, and then we're going to say after that part, before we actually apply the gravity to the fall speed. So in here, we're going to say if gravity is greater than or equal to gravity max speed, then we're going to have gravity be equal to gravity max speed. So basically, if gravity becomes greater than or equal to 5, because that's our max speed, we're just going to go ahead and make it 5. So it'll only ever go up to 5. It won't be able to go past that, right? So I forget what it's called. It's not critical mass. That's when particles too large. But you know, there's a max speed that if something's falling, it can go depending on the object itself. Okay, so you might notice I didn't put braces in here because there's only one line after it, as opposed to this if statement where there's 2. That's because there's 2 lines of code. If there's only a single line after an if statement, you don't have to put both braces. You're not going to see any difference in here. Oops, that's not what I meant. Thought I hit Control Enter. You're not going to see any differences in the way that this thing functions right now. But it will make sure that it doesn't overly go too fast. That's the idea. All right. I think we're going to call that good on this video. And I think on the next one, we will work on making sure that the ball can reset and that stuff. Okay?